And we're live. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Trump Tyranny Tracker. I'm Zev Shalev. That is the lovely Olga Lautman. Olga, it's been a few weeks since we've seen you, 2 weeks since we've seen you, because you've had a birthday, a good celebration, I hope. How are you feeling? How's life?
Life is good, and I caught you. You were about to say good morning, you
It
poor
was.
thing.
It's been that long a
You're
day.
working nonstop that you can't even
It
differentiate
has been,
morning
it's been like that
from,
lately.
from evening. Oh, poor thing. No, it was great. I took the week off last week. I went away to Virginia, Williamsburg, such a pretty place. And it was interesting because it was like, seeing the history and how this
Mm.
country was founded, and and being in the steps, like in Yorktown, I did a drive through all the sites of where the parts of the Revolution War were fought, and it showed like this was where the French hospital was, this was the American hospital, and it's through a national park. The drive, it's like a 16-mile drive, but it was really amazing. It was definitely good to get away. I try to get away from news also, even though I went back into history, and that's it. And it kind of gave me the energy, like, we have a lot to fight for, and this country's, a baby compared to other countries around the world. And, we've had these horrific, events happen in the past, like with what Trump is doing now, that, we can get on the other side of this, and we will get on the other side of this as long as people are engaged.
It is a real positive upside of everything we're going through now. I think people are beginning to really appreciate everything that America is about, and also how much went into founding America and establishing such an interesting experiment in the world, which has brought us so much freedom. It is a silver lining for everything we're going through in the world right now. The We should talk a little bit about two big stories that are developing. Tomorrow, we should be getting the Epstein files dumped from the FBI files on Epstein. That is, if the Department of Justice complies with all the expectations. There were a few new photographs issued today by the House Democrats. Also, very interesting, tantalizing photos that make you wonder what exactly was going on inside the Epstein fold. But do you expect these DOJ files to come tomorrow? Do you think they're actually going to show up with the right files at the right time?
No, no. I think they'll release something because they have to start releasing things, but I don't think they're ever going without a fight to release everything. And it's interesting because I don't like to be a conspiracy theorist, but the fact that Dan Bongino, who made a
Mm.
big hype about these Epstein files when he was a podcaster, which is shameful that he became deputy FBI director, that he also is resigning. And I think that's part of what he sees himself, that that basically the government, Trump and his cronies are doing everything to cover everything up. I do
Right.
think that there are enough Republicans in Congress, at least not enough, but a handful, who will make noise and who will make sure that everything does come out. So again, will it come out tomorrow? I don't think so. Interestingly, again, I don't like to be a conspiracy theorist, but Mike Johnson, sent everyone home, and House is closed tomorrow. So you have a lot of things happening at the same time, but they have to come back in January. So I mean,
I
it's
do think they're going to come. I think they are going to show up tomorrow in some form. I mean, you're right. We may not get everything we want, but I think we will see a number of the files from the FBI, and that's okay. Just starting off with some of that is going to be very helpful to those of us who've been scouring this information for so long. It'll help us even begin to form an idea of what's in there. But I think the indications are that they will be releasing them, and the fact that Mike Johnson has sent everyone home is probably a good sign that they are going to come tomorrow. They probably just want to avoid the fallout from what will be quite big news. I mean, as we look at some of these new photos that came out today, this is from the House Democrats. These are originally from the Epstein estate. Don't ask me why he has this medication, but it's for UTIs. They just interesting that he had that in the photographs. But the rest of these photographs are very revealing about Epstein's ties to a lot of scientific figures and very wealthy people from the Middle East, including Saudi Arabia. These are some of the photos from his own archives. In amongst these, you'll see people you'll recognize, like Woody Allen. There he is with some of the either staffers or women who worked with him, and this is another one who believed to be a staffer who's next to him and he's playing. But there are many names in these photos that are very, very, very well known. Ehud Barak is in there, of course. He's come up many times alongside Epstein's name. But there's also Bill Gates is shown in these photos a lot. Steve Bannon is shown in these photos. It's quite a collection of people. And this is only just a small amount of the 95,000 photos that they've got. None of these names are particularly surprising, except I think Steve Bannon over here has come out to be a much bigger figure in in Epstein's life than we had thought before. Any thoughts about that?
I mean, we have to remember that Steve Bannon, before becoming a propagandist and, this vile creature, did work, if I remember correctly, in Goldman Sachs, and he was running pump and dump schemes on Wall Street in his former life before heading to Breitbart, and then eventually, to his own propaganda network that he created. So I think, being that he was, had a decent influence in Wall Street, I think, that's where he and Epstein probably overlapped, because Epstein was very close to all the, people who were in the finance world and Wall Street and whatnot. I mean, this was his circle of people, including, on top of it, we've talked about it before, MIT, Harvard, the scientists and whatnot. There was a Ukrainian passport that was out earlier. I saw a picture.
Yeah, so you see there's pictures of various passports, believed to be passports of the girls or the
That's
women, I
the
should say.
Russian
Yeah.
Well, it says Russian.
Yeah,
God.
it is Russian. This looks like a Middle East country of some sort, maybe Saudi Arabia. South Africa's in here. The EU is in here. It's interesting there. Some of the women were brought through the European open passport zone that was created for the Eastern European countries. This is obviously Republic of South Africa ID card. I'm not sure what the country that is. It's Ukraine. Yeah. So, I mean, there's women who came from all over the world into this operation. Some of them as innocent victims, some of them as spies, some of them as people who are interested in pursuing a modeling career, and then found themselves doing very different things over time. But it is interesting that these passports are all there because he made them surrender those passports. This is no, what's his name? Chomsky, isn't it? I think.
Yeah.
And there's Bill
the
Gates.
other Russian show.
Yeah.
What's interesting, on a side note, from Epstein, I grew up in Brighton Beach and with Russian mafia, and I remember in the 90s, it had to be the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. The Russian mafia, they were bringing young girls, underage girls, into United States, and at the time, they were putting ads in, Eastern European countries. He called that there were babysitting, housekeeping positions available and whatnot. So they would bring these girls here, take their passports, hold on to their passports, and that's why when I saw this, I wanted to look to see if it was the same tactic, and then force them into sex slavery. If anyone attempted even to step outside, they were held on Brighton Beach, these girls. If anyone attempted to speak to anyone from the outside world, they had threatened their family and said that, if you open your mouth or, discuss anything happening, then we will kill your family back in Ukraine or Russia or wherever it was. And I remember it must have been like the early 90s. This one day I was walking and this woman came out young, and she just had a nervous breakdown, and she was screaming, and she said, "I don't care if you kill my family, blah 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 blah, whatever." and ended up that because they abused these girls so much from what they did to them, and they put them into these underground, like, escort services and whatnot, that she just like went like crazy. And she found a way to get out into the middle of Brighton Beach, started screaming. And at the time, I remember I was seeing a cop who worked at the precinct, in the local precinct. And eventually he had told me that she was one of the tip offs that eventually led to the FBI coming in. And I mean, it got to a point that the FBI was literally on every corner in blacked out vans. They had the whole area surveillance, and it was specifically because of this, because these girls were being brought here under the guise of, you're going to have a housekeeping job for, whatever, $500 a week or 300, whatever it was at the time, plus housing. And then when they came here, their passports were taken and they were forced into this. And I mean, they were abused so bad. They uncovered quite a few. They did quite a few raids on top of every other crime that they
Right.
came across on Brighton. But they did quite a few raids and they uncovered these girls. And I mean, it was the most heartbreaking thing that like I ever,
It
saw.
sounds really traumatic, and in fact, it is very similar to what was done there. I mean, I don't know if the families were threatened at home, but the passports were taken away from a lot of these young women. Some of them would try to escape by swimming off the island and various other things. So, it's very similar in some ways, but obviously a different kind of market in other ways. But we know could be the same. Certainly the same kind of tactics.
Yeah.
Um, the other interesting story that's developing this evening is around Trump renaming the Kennedy Center under his own name. He's decided to call it the Trump Kennedy Center, adding the president's name to a memorial Congress designated to JFK after his 1963 assassination. So, a real intrusion in history there. Federal law explicitly prohibits installing additional memorials or plaques in the nature of memorials at the Kennedy Center, but he's doing it anyhow. And you're telling us tonight that there was a board meeting with some of the key, their board members, I guess, of the Kennedy Center, who were muted during the conversation, so they were not actually able to express their opposition to this vote.
Yeah, so I watched an interview on CNN with Representative Beatty from Ohio, and she is an ex officio member. I
Mhm.
hope I got that right.
I think you did.
Um, of the Kennedy Center, and they were on the call. She said, first of all, it was the most unprofessional meeting she ever saw. It was basically being run out of someone's house, whoever arranged the meeting, instead of a normal boardroom. And the reason that she was adamant about coming on and giving this interview was because she wanted to correct the record that this was not a unanimous vote. And she said that the people who did attempt to ask questions, object to it and whatnot, that they were muted. And, she's like, I kept trying to unmute myself. First of all, I thought this took place in person. And then after listening to her, I was like, wait, I guess this was like a Zoom call.
Wow, what a way to
Um,
change something that's so important.
yeah,
It's really terrible.
yeah, because she said she kept, and I still didn't understand because I
Mm.
thought maybe she was at the board table
Yeah, they muted her.
until and then they muted her. But no, then she got into someone's kitchen or something, and then she's like, I tried to press unmute, and it says all participants are muted.
Wow.
Then I realized that's a Zoom meeting or something, Google Meet. But she basically said, and they showed that he already renamed the website. So if you go on the website, it's Trump Kennedy Center. And she basically, said that this was censorship. She said, people had things to say, concerns. Obviously, she wouldn't have approved with renaming anything. And she said it's against the law to rename this.
Right.
Um, but they went ahead and changed the name on the website, and on top of it muted these members. And I mean, this is just, it's sickening because Trump has nothing to do with Kennedy. If I were the Kennedy family, I mean, they really need to sue Trump immediately
It really is a
because
terrible thing because this the center was, of course, created as an homage to him after his death, and it's designed to be a tribute to him. And for it to be renamed in this way by so intrusively by Trump himself. I mean, it's one thing if after his term he's being celebrated for the wonderful things he did, and maybe they want to add him to the name. But it's he's doing it at the end of his first year, which has been a disastrous year in his second term, and he's already giving himself honors. It's the height of egotism and completely disrespecting the Kennedy legacy.
I will tell you that when we survived this nightmare, anything, including the Department of what is it, the Peace Institute, um,
The Trump Institute of
anything
Peace.
that he put under his name,
Yeah,
I will not stop screaming until this is changed back to its original name, because we don't want his name there. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. Like the American people have a right of what is, to have input into this, and his name better come off. And if, like I said, I really hope the Kennedy family, sues this, because who in the hell, if you're a Kennedy, who wants Trump next to you? I mean, can
absolutely.
you imagine? I mean, that's like mortifying. That's like, having Stalin next to you, or
Just
some other
defiling it, yeah.
Putin, or, yeah, I mean, so, and it goes to the bigger picture of him thinking he's above the law and having this dictator mentality, because I mean, this is what happens in Russia, that you put statues of people, and
Yeah.
I'm shocked that he hasn't used our money yet to commission gold statues in every city
I
and
think it's going to
main
come.
town square. But I mean, it's something that needs to be pushed back on, because yes, it's the Kennedy Center today, last it was Trump Institute of Peace, and everything he's trying to make around himself, and it's frankly gross.
The only thing that should be named after Donald Trump is a jail cell, and he can stay in it for as long as he wants, and
Absolutely.
on taxpayer payroll, or at least on taxpayer pay.
Or
Um,
something in space. Elon Musk can load him onto a spaceship and take him out, and they can go name
he could be a
a
low
planet.
flying satellite
Yes, they can
for
name
as
a
long.
satellite, a planet, I don't care. Oh, out of this world, not here.
The top of our Trump tourney track, it's day 332 of the Trump administration, is a story about the Venezuela oil blockade. Trump declared a total and complete blockade of all sanctioned oil tankers entering or leaving Venezuela, designating the Maduro government a foreign terrorist organization, and claiming Venezuela is completely surrounded by the largest armada ever assembled in the history of South America. Not sure that's true. The US military has already killed at least 90 people since September in strikes on dozens of vessels in the Caribbean, which Trump claims are drug boats, but has provided no evidence. Venezuela has condemned the blockade as illegal and reckless. And perhaps the most concerning thing is that Russia has said these tensions could have unpredictable consequences for the entire West. What do you make of all of that?
Well, I mean, this is an act of war. I mean, this is an act of war. You block oil. Look, I'm not a Maduro fan. That he's a criminal. He's one that really should be overthrown. And he's not a legitimate leader. I mean, not just because of his thuggish, regime, but the fact that he lost the previous election. But first of all, this has nothing to do with Trump. And again, if he wants regime change, he needs to go to Congress and say, I want regime change. And then have an, address to the nation, not yesterday, speed walking through insanity and screaming at Americans. I mean, I've never seen someone so angry. Like,
It's
how
really,
dare how he screamed. I turned it on. I was like, why is he screaming?
he looked so
And
mad at everybody. Like,
I
it
didn't
was,
see the way he looked, because I was driving, but
uh,
I heard it, and I was
oh,
like, "Why is he screaming at everyone?" Like,
literally screaming at everybody and about nothing, about a bunch of lies. I mean, there were so many lies. It was unbelievable.
the whole
It's
thing
almost like he
was a
thinks so.
lie.
We don't live in a fact check age where people can actually check what he wrote. But back to Venezuela, there was an attempt, I guess, today to try pass some legislation to stop him from doing that. But then Johnson called the House. Sorry. But then Johnson called the House into recess, so we didn't get to see that legislation pass. But he doesn't have the military to support him here, so this is his attempt to do something, even when he's got no military support. The military is completely backed away from supporting any military ventures into actually sending troops on the ground in Venezuela.
Yeah, and like I said before, if he thinks that this is going to be a walk in the park, I mean, he has another thing coming because Venezuela is a very, I mean, this is not an easy war. This is
Mm.
going to be like getting sucked into Iraq. You have, these cartels and gangs and that it's going to turn into a guerrilla
Of
warfare.
course.
And you can't, take out and carry out regime change, from the air. And when you do change the regime, it's the same thing in Russia. If, like, say Europe or America attempted to overthrow Putin, okay, so fine, you might kill him. But then what?
Yeah.
Are you going to sit and babysit the new person that you put in? So, I mean, even if they put in a new person, if not the country, not the people, because clearly the people have no say in Venezuela for decades, but the people surrounding the regime, if they don't support it, they'll assassinate the new person in a
Mhm.
second. So that means you have to sit there and babysit. Anyway, there are so many questions. This is all that is supposed to be discussed. And I mean, instead of coming and shouting at Americans, because he made everything higher and fucked up the economy and the country and everything, instead of screaming, explain exactly what you're doing and don't use, these narco terrorist make up terms and make up,
Yeah.
and kill random people, because when he's gone, and he is going to be gone, when he's gone, the same thing can happen anywhere. US military operates around the globe. Any rogue regime can say, you know what, we don't want these Americans here, and just,
We saw it
start.
this week in Syria. Two soldiers
Yeah.
were killed by ISIS there. I mean, anyone can do it, right? I mean, it's not exclusive territory for the United States, but also we know that they're going after the oil. I mean,
Yeah,
everyone knows that they're going after
absolutely.
the oil. Why didn't they just say so instead of pretending there's some sort of narco war or whatever it is that they're projecting out there, which just reminds us all of WMDs and all sorts of other fake evidence for war mongering. The number is two story on the not the countdown, on the TTT today is a former GSA official has filed a court declaration this week alleging that Trump is bypassing normal review processes to demolish four historic federal buildings in Washington. This is one of them, the historic housing and urban development building that is slated to be demolished. The HUD is actually moving to a new building in Alexandria. But there is some concern that he's just avoiding all regulation and all the normal licensing around how to demolish buildings and also just where everyone should be stationed and where these departments should exist.
Yeah, and I mean, he can move the departments. That's not a problem. But I mean, he can't act like a bulldozer and take down the East Wing, and
Mm.
then, maybe he'll want to renovate another part of the White House and say, I don't like this. He might actually say, I don't like the White House, and knock that down and build a golf course, and then go and knock other historic buildings down. And this is problematic because, we really need pushback on this. He can't just walk around and start demolishing everything.
Now, this
And
building
this
in
is
particular
what.
is actually a building that's in poor condition. Apparently, there's leaks inside of it. It's not a healthy environment for people to work in. But it is historically significant. I mean, this style of brutalism is actually a very unique style, and it's part of the architectural legacy of DC. So for them to demolish it is really quite sad from an architectural point of view.
And if he gets away with this, he's going to get away with anything. He'll be able to go and demolish anything he wants, anywhere he wants. And that's it. And, yes, he can relocate. I mean, he absolutely can relocate and say, we want to run this out of Texas
Mm,
or Alexandria, Virginia, or wherever. But there's a process, if you want to demolish buildings,
absolutely.
there, or change buildings, not cosmetic, not fixing leaks, not, a maintenance, but actually taking down a building. There's a process, and he's not following this process. And, that's why, frankly, I don't know why people in DC aren't pushing back on this more, because we already saw what he did with the East Wing. I mean,
That's
this is the
crazy.
people's house. This is not
Yeah.
his house. It's the people's house. Go demolish Mar-a-Lago, or, Doral, or any other golf course of his.
Doral could use a demolition. But it's interesting. The East Wing. It doesn't look like he's actually going to build this thing. This so-called ballroom that he was projecting, and took in a lot of money from various donors. He fired the architect. There's now a lawsuit around it. It doesn't look like we're going to see any building going on for a long time. And I bet you he's going to keep the money.
This reminds me of how Russia operates. I swear to God, they hand out contracts. Just to give a funny story, they'll hand out a road contract, and I remember there's everything is obviously corruption and grift, and out of $1 million contract, maybe 100,000 goes to the project, the rest goes in people's pockets.
Yeah.
I remember they build a road, and I mean, so typical Russia. This is like that's why I'm telling the story because it's so typical. They build a road, beautiful, brand new road, and then there's a tree and the road stops, and that's it. And that's the end of the project. And I was like, oh, okay.
The road
So
to
this
nowhere.
is, yeah, the road to the tree. And then you make a U-turn and go back. But this is typical Russia, and this is the corruption that he's bringing here. This corruption where he's taking money, undisclosed money. We don't know who this. We know a few public
All the
companies
tech
that
firms
have
gave
been.
him hundreds of millions of dollars for this stuff, and he just basically demolished a part of the people's architectural history and took the money. I mean, no one knows that money's sort of sitting nowhere. It doesn't go into any particular treasury account. It's sort of part of this fund that he's created, and he's now not got approval to build the ballroom that he wanted to in the first place. Meanwhile, the East Wing is rubble. It's gone. Stunning.
Hmm.
Customs and Border Protection is rapidly expanding a surveillance program built around 500 small human portable drones that can be deployed in minutes and operate beyond visual line of sight. According to federal contracting records reviewed by Wired magazine, the shift moves away from large centralized platforms like Predator drones to a distributed system that tracks activity in real time and feeds live data directly to agents in the field.
This is dangerous. I think it's time for me to do an updated surveillance article, from showing what more actions and steps have been taken since the March one that I did, because there is a lot. And this is truly a surveillance state. And we know this is going to be deployed against us, because even you remember with the whistleblower who at the time revealed that Musk's Doge and
Oh,
his
yeah.
operatives,
Yeah.
were stealing data, and that it possibly went to Russia.
By
That
Starlink, yeah, I remember
yeah.
that.
You remember after he went to report this through proper channels, they sent a drone to his house taking pictures of him walking the dog, and then took those pictures and put it on his door
Yeah.
to basically threaten and shut him up. So, I mean, this is extremely dangerous that there, one, that it's happening, and two, that there's no pushback, and really no one is even discussing the surveillance state. And this is between airlines handing over data of hundreds of millions of bits of data they handed on people, taking domestic flights. And these aren't immigrants. These are, how you call it, everyone.
Mm. So
Between that, license plate readers, these drones now, the, recognition, facial recognition programs, we're in a surveillance state. And
absolutely. It's
it's
interesting. What do they mean by beyond visual line of sight? What does that mean? If it can be deployed in minutes and operate beyond visual line of sight, meaning further than you could see, presumably not through walls or anything like that.
beyond, no,
Yeah. Okay.
maybe, who knows?
Who knows?
But I think probably beyond the agent's visual
Yeah.
sight, because if he deploys the drone can fly, 20 miles,
Yeah.
10 miles, 5 miles, and provide imaging right back, in real time of what is happening.
500 small drones can probably capture quite a large footprint of land in great detail. I mean, they could be able to cover a whole city almost. With very few drones. That's really interesting that they're doing
And
that. I
and
heard right.
500 today.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
it's only a matter of time if this program works. It'll be 5,000, 50,000. They have the
Yeah.
money for it.
That's a really interesting story. I heard about Flock being rejected by a couple of city councils, or I think it was city councils, which I thought was good news because I know you love that story and you love talking about Flock. So at least some city councils are beginning to push back on that. So that's good news on some levels.
Yeah, we need to push with our states because, I mean, again, I am shocked how little attention this is getting. And like America's very quietly walking into a surveillance state.
Mhm.
And it absolutely gets no attention. Susie Wiles gets attention,
Right.
her gossiping, you know. So
There's also this other story which is related to the surveillance state, which is about ICE agents detaining and handcuffing a 23-year-old U.S. citizen in Chicago, ignoring his claims of citizenship until they scanned his face using ICE's facial recognition technology. Um, this sounds like the future is finally here, but it's in a very, very dark dystopian way. What happened?
yeah, so they arrested this 23-year-old based on the color of his skin because, clearly we have racial profiling on steroids right now. And he told them he's an American citizen. They didn't want to hear anything because, there's no due process, no respect for any kind of procedures anymore these days under this regime. And again, they use this app, facial recognition, and now it's being used on, immigrants or anyone they suspect of being an immigrant, all brown people and black people. Um, but again, this is going to be expanded to all of us. And then they scanned his face, and then it came back, yes, he is a U.S. citizen. So that tells you that it is linked to, other agencies, which I mean, a portable facial scanner can
Yeah.
provide you with a lot of information, not only your identity,
Is
but
it
everything.
legal for them to be doing that? I mean, without any real cause, or I mean, yeah, I mean, yes, they've arrested these people before for being on suspicion of not being legally here, but that's not really doesn't sound very legal that they can
No,
identify someone.
nope. No, it's not. I don't think there's anything legal against it. And we see all their tactics. I mean, judge after judge, we've had already probably 100 plus cases where the judges said that they're carrying out this was unlawful, this is unconstitutional, but they still continue doing this. And this is why I say we can't put pressure on the federal government because clearly they're useless and hijacked, but we can put pressure on the states that are operating. I mean, if ruby red states are okay with all of these surveillance tools being used against their citizens, then that's so be it. But people in New York, New Jersey, purple states, blue
I don't,
states,
yeah,
we can actually, we have people in power here who can, enact state laws and say, no, absolutely not. This is not allowed. And that's it. Because, I mean, this takes, warrantless searches to like a complete new level. Now they're
absolutely.
scanning your face and telling you who you are, what you are, and who knows what other data is
Mm.
coming
And
with this.
you talk about red states that are not appreciating the current immigration policy and what ICE is doing. When you look at what happened in Miami, flipping to a Democratic mayor, it's a clear indication that even in red states, they don't want any of the surveillance that the federal government is instituting, which is an important electoral ramification of all of this. Our final story tonight is about the Danish intelligence service and their military intelligence, particularly, who warned for the first time that the U.S. actions under Trump are creating a security uncertainty, citing economic coercion, shifting strategic priorities, and increased military activity in the Arctic. The report notes Washington no longer rules out using economic or military pressure, even against allies, raising doubts about America's role as Europe's security guarantor. This marks an extraordinary shift in what's been going on, and also with the new strategic document that Trump put out, a real shift in our approach to the EU.
Yeah, and this is something I wrote a year ago for SIPA, a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, that should Trump come back to power, that he will become a threat to our allies and to the world order and to NATO and to everything. And I mean, it was a very clear warning, and I kept giving warnings all throughout last year about this because I knew that the minute he comes back, he is going to go after our allies.
Hmm.
You see him, cozying up to Putin, Xi, and all the other autocrats. You have, Dmitriev again flying into Miami. I think he already got
Yeah,
here
for the
for a
weekend.
meeting. Interestingly enough, not only is Dmitriev in town for talks, but Qatar, the Turks, and Egyptians are here too
Hmm.
for a meeting with Witkoff and Kushner. So,
Interesting.
yeah, this is something to keep an eye on, because I got two separate Reuters alerts. One says they're meeting with the Russians on the weekend. The other one says they're meeting with the Turks, Egyptians, and Qataris tomorrow.
Hmm.
Um, Dmitriev is here. There is a Russian
What do
flag.
you think about that? I mean, do you think that this is part of the security guarantees that they're trying to assemble for Ukraine, or what do you think the
No, this
yeah
is a business deal. This is Russia probably figuring out how to move money
yeah
through the Qatar sovereign fund, to Kushner and to Witkoff,
mm,
to continue doing exactly what they're doing, which is, goes back to Danish intelligence. And now Europeans cannot rule out that the United States will attack a European country. And I don't blame them. And frankly, they should all have, plans in
well, that's
that
what they're
case.
doing. That's
And
Canada's doing it as well. 300,000
yeah,
volunteer army being assembled in Canada of all places. I mean, this is not a country that you would
no.
normally think is going to go to war with the United States, but they're certainly preparing for that kind of eventuality. And with NATO, or at least the United States pulling out all its troops from Europe by what 27. It really is going to change the dynamic a lot, as Europe no longer can rely on the United States for its defense in any way. Well, that someone pointed out to me, the European armies are, together 1.5 million strong. They're pretty formidable armies. They're not something to be laughed at or dismissed as being able to protect Europe.
First of all, I don't know why people have in their head that Europeans are weaker. They have just as many people as the United States if
Hmm.
you combine all the countries. Military power, as far as, weapons, they have some of the best weapon systems, but they've been too reliant on the United States, and they've shifted, the Germans and the French to ramp up their weapons productions. The problem there is they just need more time in order to wean off of the U.S. systems,
Hmm.
um, and financially, same exact thing. I mean, they're probably, if you take the continent, they're just as wealthy as the United States. So I'm not sure where it is and why they think that they need a guarantor.
Hmm.
Um, because they've always positioned themselves as they need help from the United States, and that the United States is the big brother. But they should have, at the same time, especially from after 2016.
Hmm.
I mean, we saw that Trump was elected, and fine, it could have been an anomaly, but they saw the movement that was being built around it. If it was just some random freak show that Trump
Yeah.
got elected and that's it, and like 4 years later everything resumes back to normal, it's one thing. But they saw the MAGA movement growing and growing and growing. They should have started making plans at that time, to say, wait a minute, politically United States is too unstable, and this might take a few decades to go back and forth, which is exactly what happened, because then they breathed a sigh of relief when Biden came. But here
They
we
left the
are
door
now.
open for Putin, and he kept his disinformation services going. And now we look at the state that Europe is in, as they're realizing how much damage he's done to their
Yep.
democracies through X and through other, just general disinformation strategies that the Kremlin uses against Europe, including buying politicians, including rigging elections. I mean, this is not news to us anymore, but it's certainly happening in parts of Europe all the time.
Hmm.
The British spy services, now united under one agency, just issued their biggest warning ever about Russia being a direct threat. And the British Parliamentary Committee this week put out a report saying that Russia and China are attacking Britain at the highest rate ever, using their cyber forces and their tools. It is really becoming very apparent to Europe that we've all been under attack, and it's not just been the United States.
Problem is that it started around 2012,
Hmm.
2013, right before Russia. launched its invasion against Ukraine, that's when they started their activity against Europe. Even arguably 2011, they began, co-opting and running malign influence operations. So, good morning to them.
A little too
But
late, but at least they woke up.
yeah, it's never too late because
Mm,
now that's the thing that one positive, if there's a positive to be seen after reading, after Trump publishing the national security strategy and everything that's been happening,
mm,
with this, is that the Europeans are going to have no choice. I mean, now they're going to be forced into action. And honestly, frankly, if they take care of their security, it's going to make it better, because then when the United States does come back finally for good,
mm.
first of all, it's going to take time for people to trust a long
I don't
time.
think it'll be back that quickly. That trust is going to take
No,
a very long time.
no, the trust is going to take a long time.
Mm,
U.S. being back to normal, I think, or at least politically, Washington, I think will happen sooner than we think. Um, but at least Europe, there'll be, imagine when the U.S. comes back and comes out of this evil hostage situation. You have a strong U.S. and a strong Europe. I mean, then both together will be unstoppable. So.
one would hope, although you look at China's buildup of military in their army, and it certainly looks like they're planning for something by 2030 as well. We'll see what happens. Anyhow, we've taken up a lot of time tonight, a lot longer
Yeah.
than normal. That is the Trump
We
Tourney
miss each
Tracker.
other.
It
It's
has been a
been
few weeks,
weeks.
so I do miss you. It's nice to catch up. Olga Lautman from the Trump Tourney Tracker and Unmasking Russia. What do you have coming up on your Substacks that people should be paying attention to?
I am playing catch up this week because I actually took the time off and when traveling, and I'm back and I'm really like, this week is catch up. I'm
Right.
so
Did you put up a
sorry.
Mayflower piece, or was that an old piece that I saw today? There's a
N-
piece in the about
the
the
May.
Mayflower address that.
Oh, that's old.
Oh,
That's
okay,
an
it's a
old
good
piece.
one. It's a good one.
No, right now I'm trying to play catch up, and I promise I'll have the trackers up to date, everything up to date soon, and then that's it. And I think that the last 2 weeks, I mean, literally next week is Christmas, the week
Mm.
after is New Year's. I think now is a good time to kind of like regroup and come back
Come back
strong.
strong in the new year. That makes a
Yep.
lot of sense. Olga Lautman from the Trump Tourney Tracker, thanks again for being here on the Trump Tourney Tracker Live. We'll see you again for the last one on Tuesday. Is that right? We're going to do one on Tuesday?
Yeah, we'll do one on
Okay.
Tuesday. I mean, if you want to do one before New Year's,
We could do one on
we'll
Tuesday and
figure
then
it
we'll
out.
see how it goes. Yeah, if there's
Yeah,
anything
we'll
big in
see.
the
It's
news.
holiday time. It's time, like, everyone should, take this time to spend with family, friends, and
Yeah,
kind of just relax and everything, because next year we have a very, very
big
difficult
undertaking.
year. But I have to say I am positive for America. Like, I feel it because, I mean, even in Kentucky, I just saw this week or last week, a Democrat won by 40 something points
Yeah.
in a state Senate seat. So you see Republicans are getting their ass kicked. You see Trump is shouting at Americans.
Trump is worried. Trump is worried. Moderate Republicans are worried. They're having a mutiny against Mike Johnson. There's a lot of good things too, coming for Democrats
Yeah.
as long as they stick to the plan and keep the pressure up on Trump. Well, thanks for being here again, Olga, and thank
Thank
you at
you.
home for being here. We'll see you again tomorrow at 3 o'clock on the Five Stack with Dean. And tomorrow's Epstein Day, so we'll be around all day bringing you news about what the FBI drops for the Epstein files. Have a great night,
Nice.
everybody.
Bye.